came back, I knew I needed to come back with some sort of impact. And I thought, man, why don't I crucify the Sandman? That'd be great. You know, I've always said Raven's a martyr for society's dysfunction. And so I was like, so now I'll make Sandman feel how I feel as I'll make him a martyr for society's dysfunction now, and let him feel my pain. And of course, a few people, basically Taz, Kurt Angle, and somebody else, took offense. They thought I was denigrating Christianity or some kind of nonsense. It's just asinine. I mean, one has nothing to do with the other. I mean, religious iconography has been used symbolically throughout history. You know what I mean? And I made a very intelligent use of it, and a very creative use of it. And they didn't see it that way. They only saw it as me knocking their religion, which they're like, why didn't you make a Jewish star? I'm like, well, it would have rolled away, you know. But really, the reason I would have made a Jewish star, because I said, why don't you make a Jewish star? Because my parents are Jewish. I don't follow the faith, so I don't really consider myself Jewish. But it's kind of weird with that's another story I'll tell in a sec. But but Paulie's Jewish, Todd's Jewish. You know, they're like, why don't you make a Jewish star? And I'm like, you know, I go, because it's not identifiable. You know, you don't put somebody up on a Jewish star.
There's no symbolism behind that.
Right. You hang them up on a cross. You know what I mean? You know, it's their cross to bear. It's used in language all the time. Joey Styles was the other one who hated it. And the best part is Joey's like, you know, you're using burying, Christianity in vain. I'm like, you say, oh my God, every high spot. You're not supposed to use the Lord's name in vain. He's the biggest hypocrite of all time. You know, and every time I argue that point with him, this is what he does. He goes, you know, it doesn't really matter, and change the subject. And then he'll go right about it, you know, and bury me for the thing. And then when I try and discuss it with him, he won't, because he's a typical one of those people who argues. He's like a Rush Limbaugh character. If you argue with him and you expose his argument, he doesn't want to. If you expose his argument, he won't see it. He will ignore logic if it confronts his opinion. So, you know, you give me, like, if I have an opinion on something, and that's why. But I'm very hard to convince you to change my mind. But if you show me logic and say point A, point B, point C, point D, I'm like, okay, I can see that. I will change my mind now. But I'm not just going to change it because somebody says so. But I will in the face of logic. People like Joey, in the face of logic, will not change it because they just will not change their beliefs and are set in them. And it's so aggravating that every 6 months or a year, somebody will tell me that Joey's at it writing again about the angle, you know what I mean? And now, and so I'll call him up on it, and they're like, can't you just say hi? I'm like, well, no, you're burying me. He's like, first words out of your mouth are, you know, this argument. I'm like, you can't just say hi. I'm like, well, why should I when you're burying me, you know, all the time? You know, I just want to make my point that you're a hypocrite, you know. He's like, wah, 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 wah. They made me go out and apologize, which was so horribly stupid, because the people, you know, we're the company that pushes the boundary. But I understood it, because they're trying to seduce Kurt Angle into coming to work for the company. And Kurt Angle sees that, he's like, oh my God, you know. Kurt, you know, didn't know enough about the business, you know. He just thought that here's this guy, you know, stomping on Christianity, which it wasn't. But in his defense, he didn't know the storyline and my character and stuff. But then again, also not in his defense, he's also said later, you know, that he really was offended. You know, it's kind of back and forth. Like, sometimes he'll tell me to my face that he wasn't offended, and then sometimes he will say that he really was. And, you know, I think he's mixed on it. You know what I mean? But I think it depends what mood he's in. I'm more what I mean is, I think it depends on. The business is such a fickle mistress. You know what I mean? When she's treating you bad, you know, you're going to bury everything you see. You know, and when she's treating you right, then, you know, everything's all right. You know, right in roses or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever talked about it with Taz again. And like I told you with Joey, but those were the three people that were really vehement against it, or at least that I heard of. You know, there may have been others, but they were lower in the card, and they maybe were afraid to express their opinion. Ironically, the audience got it. You know, the people who were supposed to get it got it. But Paulie made me go out and apologize, because he was trying to get Kurt to work for us, and which I don't blame him for that. Although he had to have realized there was no way we were hiring Kurt at that point. You know what I mean? Plus, there's no way we were hiring him, period, when Vince was going to offer him so much more money. You know what I mean? So we're supposed to be the company that pushes boundaries, and then all of a sudden we go, well, we pushed it too far. We're sorry. That's just so not our company. You know, that just kind of like, it was one of those where the audience agrees to forget that it ever happened.